Gentlemen, a pleasant good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Louis Sports Network. Hope everybody is having a wonderful evening. Before we get started, I want you to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure your post notifications are turned on. Make sure you're sharing on your social media platforms. Truly appreciate it. Hope everybody is having a wonderful Wednesday night. Definitely appreciate y'all, man. Thank you guys for always taking the time to like and sharing and subscribing to the channel. Definitely appreciate that. Peace and blessings to everybody. Much respect to you guys as always. So in today's video here on the LSN, I wanted to talk about one of the more underrated players of the 80s in an era where it was the most stacked position in all of basketball, and that was the small forward position. What player am I talking about? Am I talking about Larry Bird? No. Am I talking about Dominique Wilkins? No. Am I talking about Bernard King? No. I am talking about, from the Philadelphia 76ers, the great Andrew Toney. Andrew Toney only played 8 years in the NBA, and the reason he retired was due to injuries. A lot of lower leg injuries. In particular, if we want to be, quite frankly, he had a lot of foot problems that he began to suffer around probably his 5th or 6th season. And before I get into the injuries that cut his career real short, I want to talk about something. Andrew Toney was actually one of the more fundamentally sound players in the NBA that played for a team that had Bobby Jones, that had Maurice Cheeks, that had Julius Erving, eventually Moses Malone, when the Sixers won the title in '83. But let me say this, man, looking at Andrew Toney's offensive game, that dude was an automatic jump shot. I've seen him shoot the ball in transition. I've seen him in the ability, when they run the fast break, he has the ability to get to a spot on the floor. Once he receives a pass, he can shoot the basketball. When he went one-on-one against a defender, and the defender would force him left, when I watch him shoot the jump shot when he goes left, he reminds me a lot of Bernard King. Bernard King was known for getting extension on his jump shot, which made it difficult to block. And I've seen guys like in highlights, and you know, if you were an Andrew Toney fan, you would have to be there. In people in real time watching Andrew Toney play could tell you a lot more, you know, than I could, because I didn't watch Andrew Toney play. He was before my time. I'm a late 80s baby. But what I do is I tend to watch a lot of underrated players that don't really get the recognition and that deserve props for how good of a game they were. They weren't flashy, but Andrew Toney was fundamentally sound. Like I said, he was a walking bucket. And I enjoy watching Andrew Toney, like, in these highlights, man. Like, for a guy that was 6'3", 6'4", going up against players like Larry Bird and Cedric Maxwell, who would have anywhere from like 5 to 6 inches in height advantage and would probably be 50 to 60 pounds heavier. The guy had good, strong shoulders that he was still able to move players like that, which showed you that he had a good, strong body frame for a man his size, and could get to any spot on the floor, was a team player, didn't really complain about the amount of shots he took. He could really play in a team-oriented offense, would come off of screens, had the ability to go one-on-one. He was actually pretty crafty too. He had a lot of shifty moves. And one thing that I also noticed about Toney, when he would get the ball, he had a quick first step. I've seen him shoot jump shots off the free throw line. He could shoot it from he could shoot it from either elbow. He could shoot it from the pinch post to the mid post. I didn't see him post up a lot. I'm pretty sure that there were at times that he, you know, did some post ups. But when Andrew Toney was hot, he was difficult to stop. There's a reason why he was called the Boston Strangler, and Danny Ainge is on record as saying that Andrew Toney was the player that kept him up at night, just because of how dangerous he was as a basketball player. Like, he can just go off. And in the early 80s, Andrew Toney was putting up big games, you know, in those series against the Boston Celtics, when it was from 80 to 82. If you look at that 3-year stretch, the Sixers and the Celtics, I mean, that was such a heated rivalry. The 81 series, when they played each other, was probably the greatest series of all time between those three. And it's definitely one of the greatest series of all time in NBA history. But the best series between those two teams when you talk about their team history, but just unbelievable. And it's a shame that the Sixers organization, they made it seem like if Andrew Toney didn't want to play, they had attitude problems, when the man was really playing hurt. And his career was cut short. He only played 8 years. He would have played longer, and we probably would have saw a longer peak, because Andrew Toney probably had maybe about a 3 or 4 year peak in his career. He could have easily had a couple of 20-point per game seasons. He did make 2 All-Star teams, so that was actually pretty cool on a team of, like I said, on a team of Dr. J and you know, and those players. And Doug Collins, I know that Doug Collins had retired due to his own injuries. And, you know, the Sixers are very fortunate that they were able to get a player like Andrew Toney. Like I said, the old school cats are really going to appreciate Toney. And I know that there are new school people that tend to give a lot of respect to some of the former players, while the other old school people, they don't really care for players like this. But I honestly think that Andrew Toney is one of the best to ever do it. It's just that his prime was too short with his stress fractures in both feet, and had bone spurs in both legs, in his ankles. That was crazy that he played through that. I'm amazed that he even played a couple of more seasons even after that. But you can see that the injuries really, it really hurt his numbers. Like, his numbers went down after the injuries. But when he was healthy, one of the more underrated, feared players in the entire NBA in his prime. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, gave opposing defenses fits. There's your boy Louis with another one, man. Let me know what you guys think about Andrew Toney, man. A living legend, a Sixers legend that definitely deserves his respect in the NBA. All right, ladies and gentlemen, bless up, live, laugh, love. Thank you guys for watching.